reason we're here really is to present to you a model, some would say of good practice, but a model of working with young people in a common word among the youth around interreligious and intercultural dialogue and action. But before I do that, let me at least give you a bit of background into Right Start and how we came to work in this field and our work with young people in particular. And I hope to have maybe 5 minutes at the end to go into a bit more of a practical aspect in terms of what are some of the key elements that are ingredients for support for young people working in this field, and also potentially preventing them and protecting them from harm and in terms of getting involved, whether it's drugs, extremism, or intolerance in terms of religious freedoms. And I say that because you'll see the kind of work that we've been doing from 2003. Right Start Foundation, our core beliefs, being an interfaith summit if you like, is that for society to improve, it's got to start at the grassroots level, and it's got to work from the grassroots level, a sort of a bottom-up approach. And secondly, we believe in the role that youth can play and have played and will continue to play in changing society for the better through local action. And one of the first projects that we did, based on the fact that it's one of the key issues affecting communities, and drugs in particular, has no geographical boundaries, no religious boundaries, affects all communities. And this is one of the first projects that we worked on with young people, from drugs education to drugs training to drugs treatment. And we started with education, but as we encountered more young people, they always asked us the question, what about those who are already on drugs? What do you do to help them? How can we help them? So we went into drugs treatment as well. And this is one of the pioneering projects that we had, which is called Drugs, Rap and Mix. And if you're familiar with drugs and familiar with rap or music, you'll see where the drugs rap and mix, because you rap drugs, you mix drugs, and you can rap and mix. Anyway, moving on. Another project, again, in terms of dialogue and interfaith work, mainly because of our chairman of Right Start Foundation, sorry about the bad picture, Dr. Amr Khalid. He's well known, particularly amongst the Arab community, Arab world, and Muslim world internationally, for his, if you like, way of communicating with young people around integration, around using their faith to do social action and coexistence. And this was sort of, if you like, an extraordinary or out of ordinary way of dealing with a cartoon crisis, where a lot of it was about reacting to the cartoon issues, particularly by the Muslim community, in a negative way. Sorry, let me rephrase that, not in a negative way. In a particular way, whether it be by criticizing, which some would have legitimate reasons to do so, and others would say, well, let's have a dialogue. Let's go and discuss this issue about religious freedoms and religious identities. And that was a cultural dialogue where we took about 25 young people to Denmark, Muslims from around the Middle East and North Africa, to meet with young people, Danish young people, to talk about this issue and who is Muhammad and why is he so sacred to Muslims in particular, and how can we talk about these issues. We also had a project called Muslim Leaders of the Future, again on the back of 7/7, the terrorist acts in London. Again, it was about Muslims, young people, and Muslims in particular, young Muslims were sort of, again, targeted as young people who are at risk and vulnerable, and therefore, we need to start working with them and target them, and it's, what can we do? Sort of the firefighting solutions. And for us, again, it's not about that. For us, it's about prevention rather than cure, as we did with drugs. And it's about how can young people be proactive in demonstrating that they are active citizens in their local community, wherever they may be. So it's a personal development program to get them involved, to deliver local community activities for the benefit of others, so that they can show that young people actually do play a positive role in their societies. And this is the dialogue in action in Denmark around the cartoon crisis. And this is our founder and chairman, Dr. Amr Khalid, in Germany, talking about integration in 2007. This looks like an old presentation by the looks of it. It's not the latest one, but it doesn't matter. It's all the same. You might recognize the person in the middle, David Miliband, who was the ex-foreign minister in Great Britain. unfortunately beaten by his brother to the Labour Party. But anyway, politics. Moving on. We also have TV shows, again involving young people. Sorry, I've got my back to my panelists. We also have a TV show, and I'm not going to show you the video because, in interest of time, by all means Google it, it's on YouTube. And again, it was about getting young people to, if you like, deliver, again, social action. And this was on sort of, if you like, it was copying, using the example of the Apprentice-style TV show. So instead of them getting money or a job at the end of the program, they were selected, and the winner would get a fund to do a local community activity or national community activity for the benefit of the community, a social enterprise, if you will. And thousands applied, 16 were chosen, and 1 was the winner. And then comes a common word among the youth, which is, I guess, why we're here today, really. We've been invited to really present the model of a common word among the youth. And a common word among the youth, really, its background very quickly is a common word. If you're familiar with a common word, which was a project between Muslims and Christians on the back of Pope Benedict's speech in 2006 and the response thereof of his comments around Islam and Muslims. And that was between Muslims and Christians. And again, I would call you to Google a common word, and you'll see lots of articles and awards, etc. And there's a website which, again, has lots of activities on that. And at the 2009 conference in Georgetown, the dream was, from the chairman, that we would like to see young people, instead of religious scholars, and a common word was about Muslim and Christian religious scholars, talking about common and interfaith work, common word between us. And so the dream was to have young people play this role, but not just have dialogue, but also deliver action on the ground, deliver projects, turn theory into practice, using the energy of young people. And so that was born really in 2009, and since then, unfortunately, with the Arab Spring, to a certain extent, I say unfortunately in terms of we had to put that on a back burner, and only last year, in 2014, we sort of rekindled the light of a common word among the youth. Incidentally, a common word among the youth also gave birth to the United Nations World Interfaith Harmony Week, first week of February. So again, that's another opportunity to deliver projects in a particular month or in the year. So a common word among the youth, we've chosen 100 young people from 75 different countries, and I have 2, thankfully, who have chosen and been selected to join us and to present really their perspective of contribution, or young people's contribution to peace, as well as some of their personal stories that they can share with you. Different cultures and religions, so it's not about Muslim Christian anymore. We've widened it out to more than those religions, and of those of no religion as well. So we have about 7 or 8 different faiths and of no faiths amongst 100 from the 75 countries. Really united by a common word, which is action, to promote peace and harmony in local community. I'm not going to go into this. I mean, an interfaith summit, I'm somewhat preaching to the converted. So there's many examples, whether it's past, present, and hopefully into the future, of young people, young leaders who continue to work in this field and other fields in social action as well. These are just some pictures of my tour of parts of Southeast Asia during Interfaith Harmony Week this year. And I met some fantastic young people, Muslims and Christians in particular, because this was a Muslim-Christian group in particular in Malaysia, who came from Indonesia to do dialogue between each other in Malaysia and Singapore. And some of the symbols and the terminology, and this was the young people going into the streets and talking to young people in Malaysia, and really having a dialogue and discussing about what unites us and how we're different, but we respect differences, we're also the same in many ways. And these are the project partners. As I said last year, the project really kicked off with our main partner, Cohesion, in the project, and together we've been planning the project along with the World Organization of Scout Movement. Hosting us in Morocco in December will be ISESCO for the first training and forum, and also Georgetown University, where the idea sort of started off with us, and they sort of said, well, you're the experts with the youth, you have our blessing, so to speak, to continue with the project amongst young people. How much time do I have left, Chair? Time. Okay. So I won't mention in detail what the 5 elements are, because I often get asked, how do we get young people involved, and what are sort of the elements to protect young people from harm, whether it's drugs or extremism. And I'll just mention the 5, and if we have time during question and answer sessions, maybe we can go into them. First is knowledge, and then secondly is understanding. So these are the 5 elements that I would advise young people to take up and consider, because without knowledge, without understanding, knowledge is useless, and then without understanding, action is necessary. Without action, understanding will be useless, so knowledge is required, therefore, with understanding, to understand the knowledge in context, and then to action, to use that knowledge practically to act and do something good for others, for the benefit of others. And then 4th, to have a hope and a dream in terms of a motivator. And 5th, for some, belief or faith, and whether it's supreme being, or for some it might be a mentor if they're of no faith, to really keep them motivated and checking their understanding, whether it's a mentor, parent, teacher, or father. So with that, I'll close in terms of our approach with young people, and I'll hand over to 2 fantastic young people from the 100 who will share their stories with you. Yana?